What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on the channel. Quick one for you guys. We got a Leeds preview. I've only got a couple minutes though because I got to head out on the road. I've still yet to pack, and my wife and I are going away this weekend. So quick one. Also, PSA, if you are lucky enough to have a beard, make sure that the guard is on correctly when you're trimming it up, because you're going to nick it and take it off too much like I have here. We'll bounce back all right though. Anyways, so let's get into our Leeds preview. So a couple quick things with Leeds. They're not like the most progressive team. They're not, high up in a lot of the metrics. Possession wise, they're pretty low. Touches in the opposition box, pretty low. A lot of those kind of things, which you would probably expect from a relegation side. But they, along with Burnley and Sunderland, that group of teams that have come up from the championship last season, have all actually been a lot more sturdy than in past years. I saw a stat last Sunday on the broadcast that between the three of them, they'd won 23 points the first 5 games, I guess it must have been 5 or 6 games, which was like almost 3 times as much as the previous couple years, the teams coming up. All that to say, Leeds is actually a pretty solid outfit, even though they haven't been scoring or been playing, incredible soccer. They are near the mid-table, like 5 to 10, 10th in the Premier League in a lot of defensive metrics, though. So that's kind of what you're going to get with Leeds. And so I wanted to touch on their last game against Bournemouth specifically, because I thought that was a lot better representation of kind of how they've developed into this season. Obviously, Bournemouth being a really good side this season. We saw, the 1-0 loss we had to them at home earlier this season. And Leeds comes away with a 2-2 draw, but that was, looking like a 2-1 win at home at Ellen Road up until about the 90 plus 6, I think it was, when or 90 plus 3, when Bournemouth actually end up getting their equalizer. But let's look at the starting lineup, and I'll kind of go through some notes and some things that I think we can expect out of Leeds in this one. So in this one, Leeds has been going with a 4-3-3, although they've experimented with other things here and there. I think I've seen them play a 4-5-1 at times, but if they can get away with it, head coach Daniel Farka really likes to run that 4-3-3. And so what that looked like in this Bournemouth match was Okafor, new signing this season, out on the left. Again, Calvert-Lewin, new signing as well, leading the line. And then you had Brendan Aronson out on the right. And then we're going to skip over the midfield because I'm going to touch on them in just a second. Goodmanson's pretty much started. Oh, actually, their back four has pretty much started every match this season in the Premier League, as well as Carl Darlow, who is an upgrade on Ilian Meslier, who was their keeper previously when they were in the Premier League. But I wanted to touch on the midfield, because the midfield, as you can see, Sean Longstaff in this one, new signing as well, out of previously at Newcastle. He, along with Anton Stock, who actually didn't have the best game in this one, but both of them have been having really, really good seasons for Leeds. And then you have your captain, Ethan Ampadu, who, people are probably familiar with his multiple stops in the Premier League with multiple clubs. This midfield trio has brought them a lot of their success this season. And that's something that I noticed in this Bournemouth match when looking at it, is that if we go over to our media draw real quick, and I load up a couple teams, and while I do that, I'll discuss. So basically, what we've seen a lot with Leeds this season, and especially in that Bournemouth match, was in midfield, they're going to be really solid, they're ball winning, and they're going to be able to spring attacks forward. It's actually, kind of surprisingly enough, because you don't see a ton of teams do this very often anymore, I don't think. They like to counterpress not high up the pitch, but they like to counterpress. What are we doing here? But they like to counterpress. I feel like I'm going crazy. There we go. They like to counterpress a lot in midfield. So that's something that we saw for good chunks of the Bournemouth match, was they would get into these positions here where if they turned the ball over as they're looking to move up the field, and these aren't obviously the right players, but if they're in something like this kind of a position, Rodon's obviously going to be playing center back, Goodmanson, and they turn the ball over, they're going to be in this position here, and they're going to look to all swarm toward the ball and try to win it back in midfield. However, you don't see that when they're up the pitch more. So if they're attacking and turn it over, and then one of the center backs ends up with the ball, they're not going to look to press and win the ball up that high of the pitch, it seems like. But what you are going to get out of that midfield, as we head back to here, is you're going to get a lot of sturdiness. You're going to get creating chances forward through that midfield. And so that's what we saw in this one. Actually, a pretty solid performance, even though they didn't have a majority of the possession in this one. They still ended up getting 19 shots, 8 shots on target. And within the first 20 minutes, Dominic Calvert-Lewin was able to create 3 shots on target by himself. And I don't mean that as in, he took those shots on target, but the creating of that opportunity was actually really good, a lot through that midfield of quick touches and building out from the back. And that's something that they did really well against Bournemouth, because we know how well Bournemouth plays with their press, is that Leeds was able to play through that press really, really well. And so we've seen Tottenham in this season drop back a lot more since the start of the season, and they haven't been playing that high press as much. Thomas Frank has been looking to settle in that mid block. And so that's probably what we would expect to see in this one as well, especially with as well as Bournemouth or Leeds played against Bournemouth through that press. I don't think we'll see Thomas Frank take this opportunity to now press a little bit heavier in that situation. So that brings up this for me, kind of our closing thoughts on how I think we're going to set up in this one. So I think that we're going to set up with Xavi out on the left again to try to control possession. That seems to be something that Thomas Frank really likes to do, is he likes to have Xavi out on the left to have possession. I don't think that we'll have Spence in this one. I think we will see Doggy. And then the midfield, I don't think we'll see Paulinho. I think we're going to see Bentancur with Sarr and Bergvall in this kind of playing, as probably you'll see Sarr drift in and out of a double pivot with Bergvall playing more as that number 10, number 8 role. Except for I think that he will. The reason why I think they're going to start in this formation is that I think we are going to see Tottenham try to. I'm slightly contradicting myself by what I'm about to say, but hear me out. I think we're going to see Tottenham press higher up the field, but in moments. I think that with the way that Leeds is good on the counter, I think that we're going to see Thomas Frank want to disrupt their build out from the back and not let them play quick touches as much. So I think that's where we're going to see Bergvall and Sarr be up a little bit higher. And then I definitely think we're going to have Udogie on the left. Thomas Frank confirmed in the presser that Romero is fit and he will be starting. So I think it will be him. I think Pedro Porro will start on right back, and I think Mickey Van de Ven will start at left back. We haven't seen in the Premier League yet Thomas Frank go away from that those back two of Romero and Van de Ven, and where we have an international break after this, I don't see that changing. So I think we will see Kudus on the right. I don't think I touched on him, and Richie in the middle. So I think this is basically how we're going to set up, which means that, at times we're going to have to try to build out through the wings again. I think that's what Thomas Frank is going to want to do, because with as solid as the midfield is for Leeds, I don't see this again being the opportunity that he's going to go away from what we've done in previous games. I think he's going to continue to try to build out long and wide and push up that way, which I don't necessarily agree with, but in this match, I think that's what he's going to do because of how good Leeds is through the midfield. So anyways, those are my quick thoughts on this one. So yeah, I know I'm not big on predictions, so I'm not going to give a score or anything like that, but I think that we will see a better performance than we had against Bodo Glimt and that we had against Wolves, which, by me saying that we were going to build out wide still again and stuff like that, that's what I think we will do, but I still hope that we kind of go away from that and Thomas Frank finds some creative ways to, kick the team into the next gear heading into the international break. But we all know how poor our record is heading into an international break. So maybe that's a sign of things to come. Hopefully not. I'm gonna be positive and end this thing on a positive note. So that's it for this one. I will catch you guys tomorrow in a post-game recap, which will go over all of everything that happened heading into an international break. And fingers crossed, it's a good chat instead of another negative one. So thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one. Bye.